Hi there, I'm Kimberly Henry, and this is Living the Good Life. This podcast is for those of us who have been around the block a few times and know that good isn't about perfect. It's about real. It's about doing life with more purpose, more laughter, more freedom, and yes, maybe a little reinvention along the way. Whether you're building a business, building community, or just building a life that feels more aligned with who you really are, you're in the right place. So let's talk about what it means to live well, feel good, and create something meaningful right here, right now. In this episode, I'm chatting with someone who speaks my language when it comes to living with intention, creating space for growth, and doing the inner work that leads to outer freedom. Tom Kavanaugh is a Marine Corps veteran turned master coach, educator, and self-proclaimed lifelong learner. He spent decades studying the brain, human behavior, and how we can move through trauma, challenge, and burnout into purpose-driven, joyful living. Tom and I talked about the simple practices that shape his day, the role self-care plays in everything from healing to productivity, and how his own journey from early struggles to discovering his version of nirvana has led to a life of contribution and deep clarity. Tom also breaks down what he calls the release method, a powerful tool he uses to help clients let go of limiting beliefs, emotional baggage, and even chronic stress. If you've ever wondered how to find that elusive work-life balance or how to stay aligned with your goals in the chaos of everyday life, this episode is for you. And spoiler alert, Tom has plans to hit the road full-time soon in an RV, so we bonded over that. All right, let's dive in. Welcome, Tom. So glad to have you here with us today.
Hi, Kimberly. It's a great honor and a pleasure to be here.
Absolutely. I know that everyone can't see, but I can see the backdrop that you have behind you, the lovely Ventura, California, which is one of my all-time favorite places on the planet. Do you just love living there?
I love living here. I've lived a lot of different places, and this is where I've ended up for a reason. It is ultimately the nirvana of my life.
It's a great description. It is a great weather, beautiful scenery, and a cool collective of people. I would imagine you run into all kinds of people.
Well, the nice part about it is that we're situately located where we have an awful lot of the artistic community that is part of Ventura as well as part of a city close by named Ojai, O-J-A-I.
Mhm.
And so, we have an awful lot of the arts here in the city and the surrounding areas. And we have an awful lot of farming community, which gives us a whole different dynamic of folks to work with. The city next to me, Oxnard, is the strawberry capital of the world, for example. So, Ventura is known for the annual Ventura Fair that we have in the fairgrounds every year. So we have an awful lot of unique events that happen here, local, and there's always something going on.
Yeah, beautiful, wonderful. The subject of our podcast is living the good life. And those are a lot of the pieces, having a great community, having beautiful things around you, healthy activities to do, all of the things. But I want to kind of get personal with you and ask you what living a good life means to you.
Yeah, it's a really great question. And I think it takes an awful lot of introspective contemplation for somebody to honestly answer that question. The key for me is, number one, I think we all want to be happy. Inside, I think we all seek happiness. Now, what makes you happy compared to someone else is your uniqueness. But for me, my happiness is being able to have a life that I enjoy living, not one that I feel is drudgery to have to get up to every morning and face the hardships of the world. I think that the happiness that we seek is an internal journey. So for me, living that good life means that I get up early in the morning because I know I can get an awful lot more accomplished. So I want to take care of me first in the morning. And the reason is not for selfish reasons, but basically it is selfish. I want to make sure that I'm in a good place in order for me to be able to help other people. In order for me to do that, I've got to take care of me. I need to have introspection for meditation, gratitude. I need to do some physical exercise. I need to do some mental exercise by reading and nourishing my brain. So I do all of those things in the morning first before I get ready to go to my office and help other folks.
What are the things that Tom finds himself doing day to day that are purely about the joy and the fun of it?
So that's a great question because I do a couple of things that I really enjoy doing each day. We all need mental breaks during the day. I used to be an avid golfer. Matter of fact, I was borderline addicted to it because I loved it so much. However, I found limitations in playing the sport of golf. You can only play in daytime, daylight hours. You can't only play in good weather, those types of things. I wanted something that I could be more consistent with. So I adopted two new sports. One was a mental sport, the other was physical. I adopted chess to keep my brain young and to keep me invigorated. So I play in any one day, I have anywhere from 10 to 12 games of chess going online in an application known
Wow.
as chess.com. And so the way I have them set up is we have 3 days between when we have to make a move. So I have 12 different games going all over the world with different people. And that excites me because I
Wow.
get to interact with different cultures. I get to interact and keep my brain really active because each of the players you get to know, they play differently. And so it's when I see somebody's name come up on the board, I go, oh, he's going to play it this way. And so now I know how to play against him. So that's one way. That keeps me intrigued, to keep my brain growing, keeps it young, learning. And then the other sport is physical sport. I shoot billiards, pocket billiards, and I play different games within the sport of billiards. So 8-ball, 9-ball, 10-ball straight pool. And so each of those, again, I meet every day for about an hour and a half with a group of people. We play on a consistent basis every day for each of us to get better, but we're all very competitive with each other. We have a favorite saying when we walk into the pool hall, there are no friends on your pool table. Okay, we're all competitors. And that's the fun part about it. That's the friendship. That's the community of it. So those are a couple of things that help me to live a good life.
That's awesome. My brother-in-law and nephew play pool. They're on a team. And so I get to hear stories about it and how competitive they are. And they have so much fun with it. My nephew, when we were with him just a couple of weeks ago, was talking about, and maybe this will make sense to you, maybe it won't. He's a 7 now.
Yes, yes. Absolutely makes a
Yes.
7. And that's a good shooter.
Yeah.
He's a member of what's known as the APA, the American Pool Players Association. The 7 is a very, very good shooter. The secret to playing against someone like that is you can't leave them a shot because they'll run out the rest of the table. So you have to be on your toes all the time.
Shh, don't tell anybody.
Okay.
So you've got 12 games of chess going. You have pool every day. You live in a beautiful spot. So I'm sure you spend some time outdoors and you're working out and taking care of yourself. And I know that you have a thriving coaching business. So I think this kind of takes us to where a lot of people struggle to live the life that they want to live, right? Is they don't feel like they have time to do all of those things. So how do you fit it all in?
Well, first of all, it's not about the misnomer called time management. So
Mhm.
you can't manage time. Time is going to happen whether you do something with it or not. It's a constant. It's going to keep moving. So the best that we can do is to plan the time that we have. That's where I believe you can become more successful, not only in being able to accomplish more things on a daily basis, but also focusing on the time that you have for the businesses that you're in. So for me, when we talked about taking care of ourselves, I do go for physical activity in the morning because I need oxygen to my brain to keep myself lively during the day. So I walk in the morning anywhere from 3 to 4 miles in the morning before I really am working on anything else. Then I do my meditation for gratitude. So I read an average of one book every morning. And so those are the things that keep my brain active and growing, which then energizes me to go because it makes me curious. Now that I've learned something new or I've done something new, I get a chance to contemplate what I'm going to do with that and how I can make other people's lives better during the day. So it's planning the time that you have. And then once you plan it, then have a structured agenda for the day with flexibility, of course. But that's where I am able to schedule my time during the day up until it's time for me to go shoot pool. And then I leave everything at the office and I go take a break. And then I'll come back to the office and then clean up what I need to clean up for the day before I go home for the evening.
Oh, my brain is just going. I have so many questions. firing all at once. But let me just ask you this. So in the morning, let me get to the nitty gritty. And we have so much to talk about too. So I want to get to all of that. But in the morning, just tell us, how long does that morning routine take you each day?
So I have to apologize, but you froze up there for a moment when you said I have so many questions firing in my brain. So will you repeat that for me, please?
That's what happens.
All that extra energy.
What amount of time do you spend on that morning routine?
Great question. So I'm a member of the 5 o'clock club. So getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning, I get ready. I go down to the local park that has a real long track. It has a walking track that's a mile and a half around the park. So I'll go down there. I'll invest anywhere from 45 to 60 minutes. Then I'll come back and do my meditation. And I'll do anywhere from 30 to 45 minutes of meditation with the gratitude involved in that. Because we need to express our gratitude for what we've been given. Even though not everything that we have is what we want, we're striving for more. We still need to be grateful for what we do have. I think that that's critically important to be able to set the energy of your mind, if you will. So doing the gratitude, then getting showered, change, have breakfast, and then coming to my office. The first thing that I do is, after I get everything set up in the office, turn all the lights on and everything, I sit down and I read a book. Now, I have a stack of about 18 books next to my computer, so I can pick the ones that I've set out for the rest of the month. So then I'll have an opportunity to read the book, and then I'm ready to go to work for the day with everybody else.
Okay. Hopefully you get some sleep somewhere.
9 o'clock every night.
You're on a schedule. Sounds a little bit like what goes on around here. I want to kind of turn directions here. You're in the business now of coaching, professional
Yes.
development. You are working with all kinds of different techniques, including the photo reading that you mentioned, brain gym, mind mapping, something that you call the release method, NLP, and more. What kind of pushed you in this direction to want to help people in this way?
I think it started out when I was younger. I grew up in a home that was rather contentious, where things weren't smooth all the time. As a child, you get imprinted with a lot of the trauma that goes on in the family dynamics. I've had some personal tragedies along the way in the family. Certain members have passed on that maybe were a little bit too early. And so you get to experience trauma in a different way. Having served in the military, you see more trauma. And so when I decided to look at this work, I had spent a whole career in the automobile business, 26 years of that. And I decided to get into the field of accelerated learning because I didn't know how to learn. I literally was dyslexic my whole life. So I wanted to go back to school. When I was first going to school, we didn't have the internet. I know that's hard to believe for most people, but I didn't have the internet growing up. So I was labeled as slow learner. And so my whole career was spent thinking that I was a slow learner. When I decided to retire from the automobile business, we did have the internet. I did some research and found out that there were people who had created these accelerated learning programs. So I went to train with each of the people who founded these disciplines. So brain gym with Dr. Paul Dennison, and photo reading with Dr. Paul Sheely, and NLP with Dr. Richard Bandler, and Tony Buzan in England with mind mapping. So I decided to form a cohesive collection of different learning modalities that would help people release their attachments to the symptoms of post-traumatic stress. Choosing to stay in that mindset is something that people literally have to make a decision to do. So if they make a decision not to do anything about it, they're basically making a decision not to get help. And so the release method that I created is it's an amalgamation. It's a collection of all these modalities blended into one synergy that is more effective by any of the individual modalities by themselves. So I found that there were other people who had experienced trauma in their lives and weren't doing anything about it. And I felt as though, we have a saying in the world of personal change work, the people who need the change work the most are the ones who get into the field to help others. And so along the way, by helping others, I literally helped myself overcome the effects of those traumas early in my life. And so that was the motivation for me to continue moving forward with that. Unfortunately, when Mr. COVID came along and visited us, it shut down all of my training venues and put me out of business in one afternoon. And so I had a natural pivot to, basically transition from what I was doing into the coaching aspect because I was already teaching and helping other folks. So to answer your question more specifically, the release method was created because we have an awful lot of people who are or want to be entrepreneurs in our world. And a lot of times they either have to overcome the limiting beliefs that they have about themselves, for example, imposter syndrome, or they have limiting decisions that they've made based upon someone in a position of authority at some earlier point in their life who convinced them they weren't enough, they weren't good enough, they would never be good enough, whatever that person convinced them to think about themselves. So our job as personal change agents is to be able to help people reframe their perspective on what their life is about and their perception of who they really are.
That you've just shared so much, but I wonder if you could share where somebody might be sitting when they have the realization that they have had, maybe they don't know, maybe they don't have a diagnosis of PTSD or trauma. Maybe they don't know they have the trauma or understand that what happened to them was a traumatic event that created some issues. But how do we get to that point of wanting to pivot or change or seek help or assistance? What does that look like?
Well, I think the first thing I would say is when people become sick and tired of being sick and tired of their position in life. And what happens is they're living a life that is unfulfilled, it's unsatisfactory. And there comes a point in their life when they have to make a decision on whether they're going to stay unhappy. Remember what I said in the beginning, we're all seeking happiness. So there comes a point when you have to make a decision on whether you're going to stay unhappy or if you're going to seek help to overcome what's causing the unhappiness in your life. And that's where something like the release method, there are there are thousands of great therapists out there. And as a personal change agent, our goal is to help people see the fullest potential they have to offer themselves first and then the rest of the world. You cannot help anybody else sufficiently if you haven't been able to help yourself first. You might need help with helping yourself first, but that's where someone who does what I do comes into play. When you feel as though you're just living your life in a fog, you really have no direction, you have basically apathy. You're not excited about anything. You're not unexcited about anything. You're just going through. It's kind of like bumper cars, but you stay in, at least you're staying, okay, it's still moving, but you're like kicking the can. You're kicking it sideways. You're not moving forward. And so, you feel like you're stationary. You're not moving. Everything's passing you by, but you're in the same position mentally and emotionally. And I think that's when you come to the realization that there's got to be more than what I'm living through right now.
I can go right to that moment where I had some sort of an experience where I had that realization where it wasn't necessarily though unhappiness. And I think a lot of people might be in this situation where not necessarily unhappiness, but the apathy that you're talking about and realizing that, hey, here I am. I think I was in my 40s at the time. I'm working, I'm living, I have a great life, I have kids. I have grandkids coming, everything was good, but it wasn't great. It wasn't great. It wasn't the life I had envisioned creating for myself. And so I began seeking and sharing through this podcast some different ways that we have control. I think for me, it was just like, I have control over this. I need to do something about it. Is that common?
People who have experienced trauma and who are unhappy or apathetic, need to have complete control over everything in their life because it's the only way that they can stay in a position where they're not losing it. A lot of times there are triggers that take place that will trigger an episode of past behavior, or they'll trigger an episode of being conflicted, or maybe the fight, flight, or freeze stick, comes in. There are an awful lot of people that I'm hearing about now who are basically staying inbound in the house because of what they went through with COVID. And so they're almost afraid to go out into the community because of all the things that they were told when COVID was happening. I mean, people are coming out of the hibernation of COVID. Some of them are staying shuttered in because they're afraid. They don't really know what they're afraid of, but they're afraid to come out because of everything that they've been through. So that's one thing. The other part is that the fight, flight, or fear mechanism has kicked in. So the fear mechanism puts them into a freeze situation. And so they really don't know what to do, but they know they have to continue to move forward. And so they're moving forward without a purpose, without a focus. It's just survival. So when they're in the survival mode, when they're in that state, one of the things that happens that a lot of people are not aware of is that freeze mechanism in the back of the mind, where we, remember when we talk about evolution of the brain, we had a brain stem. When people are in that state, there was no spoken language back then. We can talk to them until we're blue in the face, but they're not going to hear what we're saying. We have to get them to move out of that state into the midbrain, which is where the amygdala is. We have emotions, and then into the prefrontal cortex, which is where we have choice. The only way you can do that is through movement. So one of the things I do with my clients is I have them do what's known as the cross crawl movement. Essentially, you're walking and you take your right hand and touch your left knee, and then your left hand touch your right knee. You can do it sitting down also, but I prefer to have them moving, because what you're doing is you're now, because we have a cross-lateralized brain, you're activating the opposite hemisphere every time you cross over the central meridian of the body. And now that helps them think and brings it out into the prefrontal cortex where they can have choice, and now they can have dialogue because they can understand the language that's being spoken to them. So when people are coming out of this state, okay, one of the things is the catalyst that helps them release their attachment to the negative emotions that they've been experiencing is the fact that I ask them to understand that as an adult, they have acquired these resources, these experiences, maturity in their life. Now, those resources are very helpful when it comes to discerning whether something's important or not important. So when we talk about triggering some of the memories from their past traumas because of the state that they're in coming out of the hibernation of COVID, what I ask them to do is to go back in time with the maturity resources of the adult they are, but look at the memory of the event in their childhood through the eyes of the child they were. Now, what happens at that moment is the subconscious mind automatically reframes the meaning of that event from their past so that it literally allows them to let go of the negative emotions that are associated with the event, and therefore the triggers are no longer applicable, and so it no longer bothers them. So now here's the secret. When they come and move forward in the timeline, coming back to the now from the memory, there were decisions that were made in their life based upon the original decision. Those decisions now no longer have that same foundation, so they can let go of the negative part of that decision-making process. And now they reframe their entire history based upon that original decision. And now they're free from that limiting belief or that negative emotion that was associated with that trauma.
So let's paint the picture of that. What does it look like for somebody? Do the work and then suddenly everything looks different, or what's the outcome?
So it's a great question. And I think that we want to focus on the feeling rather than what it looks like. And here's the reason why. The negative emotions have a feeling inside. Okay. It's
Mhm.
something that we're continually bothered by whenever we think of that memory, or we might be constantly thinking about it all the time. The subconscious mind knows enough to suppress those memories until it knows that we have the mental resources to deal with it. When we teach them the resources, we give them these tools to deal with it. Now the subconscious mind is going to reframe the meaning, and therefore it's going to allow those negative emotions to dissipate. Now, there is
Right.
a series of questions I go through with them at that point in their timeline when they were experiencing that trauma. The first question is, does this continue to serve a useful purpose in your life to hold on to this negative emotion? Because sometimes there is a purpose behind it. If the answer is no, because again, we have to honor the subconscious mind's ability to suppress these memories until they come up for resolution. So we're honoring that by saying, does it continue to serve the purpose? If the answer is no, then the next question is, could you let go of that negative emotion? And just because you could doesn't mean that you would. So the next question is, would you let go of it? And then if they say yes, then the next question is, when? Now it's accountability time. Now they have to make the choice to let go of that negative emotion. And at that point, it no longer serves a useful purpose. They know it doesn't make sense anymore because it's only a memory. It can't hurt them anymore.
Mhm.
And therefore, they can just let it go because it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't hold any purpose. And more than likely, there's an opportunity for forgiveness in that mix. And in the forgiveness covenant that I created, there's three pieces to it. And this is important to understand that there's a certain amount of energy that comes with negative emotions. Okay.
Right.
So in forgiveness, normally we have to forgive the other person, but that elevates us above them energetically. Then we have to forgive ourselves, which still, it brings us down, but we're still above them in that sense. The third part of the forgiveness covenant is you have to have the ability, or the willingness at least, to ask forgiveness from your transgressor, from the person who did you harm. And the reason is because you've said bad things about them, you've thought bad things about them, or you've done bad things either to them or because of them. So that's all negative energy. So and they don't even have to be alive. You can just imagine this scenario. And if you can imagine this scenario, asking forgiveness and that person granting you forgiveness, now you've balanced the scales energetically and everything can be released. So now the
Interesting.
feeling is neutral. There's no longer a negative emotion. And now all of the energy that was used in the past to suppress that memory can now be used as a forward momentum propulsion system to move you forward with motivation, clarity, and focus.
Hmm. So this is really helpful for somebody who knows they've had some post-traumatic, right? That they've had some trauma in their life. Is it helpful for somebody who doesn't recognize that they've had trauma, but they're finding themselves stuck?
Well, a lot of times the people who feel like they're stuck, what they're doing is they're going through a process where they cannot transcend the glass ceiling of their limitations. Every time they go to get to a certain level, they seem to bump up against this imaginary glass ceiling that they can't seem to transcend. They can see where they want to go. They know where they want to go, but they don't seem to be able to get there. So there's something from their past, normally, that is holding them back. It's either imposter syndrome. It's somebody who said, you're not enough. I know in teaching photo reading classes that a lot of my students break down in tears when I mention the fact that their teachers would say to them, you'll never amount to anything if you don't know how to read. And suddenly that comes up from their past in that moment in the class, and they all break down in tears because that's what's been holding them back. They've been super successful, but they've had to fight this wave of resistance that they seem to be moving towards. And so now that resistance is no longer there because that triggered what the underlying foundational emotion was from their past. So there's situations as catalysts like that. There was a woman I worked with who had a 40-year allergy to cats. She was 46 years old. So the fact that she had gone down the street to play with her girlfriend, and her father had admonished her and said, "Don't you play with the neighbor's cat. It scratches little girls." And on the way back 2 hours later, do you think she remembered what Dad said? Of course not. So she was on the way back. She saw the little kitty cat. She reached down to pet it, and it reached up and scratched her. And she screamed bloody murder, right? Because she got scratched. So Dad comes out of the house. What do you think Dad did? Dad, instead of consoling her, spanked her all the way home for disobeying him.
Wow.
When she experienced what we know as a double significant emotional event, her subconscious mind literally created an allergy for cats to protect her from cats and from Dad spanking her. And for 40 years, she carried that allergy with her. Now, in less than an hour, she was able to release that allergy from her system. But what was so funny was 6 months later, I got a phone call from her and she said, "Tom, what did you do to me?" And I said, "What do you mean?" And she said, "You did something to me you didn't tell me about." And I said, "Oh, okay, I did work with you." She said, "No, you don't understand. What's today?" And I said, "It's the first day of spring." And she said, "Right. And all of my colleagues and I are normally popping antihistamine pills like candy." I said, "Okay." She said, "Well, they are, and I'm not." And I said, "Well, how's that a problem?" She goes, "You don't understand. I had 15 allergies and they're all gone." Well, what happens is allergies beget other allergies. And so that foundational allergy basically imploded in her psyche. And all of the other allergies went with it. So that saved her $853. I remember the number very specifically, $853 a year in allergy medication. So these are all things that people don't necessarily remember from their past, but if you get the right catalyst, it can come up and then you can deal with it.
Interesting. That is so fascinating because, yeah, you wouldn't think that that would register as a traumatic event, until you dig into it and think back. So I can imagine lots of us are sitting there feeling stuck in one way or another, or feeling apathetic, like we talked about earlier, and just going along with life, but not really feeling like you're thriving and vibrant. And it may just lead back to something what seems really simple.
It was simple now, but it was significant to the 6-year-old.
Yeah.
And see, we carry that memory. So that's the whole point. The key is this: when you access a memory, you're a different person than the first time that the event happened. So your perception of that memory is going to be different. That means that when you put it back in your memory bank, it's going to be different. So my premise has always been, if it's going to be different anyway, why not put it back the way you want it?
Now, I'm going to take it a little different direction. That feels like voodoo or magic, right?
It's definitely magic. It's definitely magic. And it's magic that you have all the tools to perform. You already have all the tools. Somebody just needs to teach you how to use them. Our subconscious mind is the most powerful mechanism on the planet, really. And we don't use it for 1/10 of what its ability is because nobody's taught us. So now when you have somebody who can teach you, give you those tools, now you're empowered for life. That's the whole point of a breakthrough session. The release method I talked about earlier is designed specifically to empower an individual for life to be in control of their emotions and of their memories.
So can we break that down a little bit? What does that look like if somebody wanted to pursue working in that modality?
Sure. So the release method is a 2-day protocol that I developed. And essentially, it's designed specifically to help you and to teach you how to release your attachment to the symptoms of negative emotions from your past. That's essentially what it does. So it's release the exhaustion, lessen your emotions, and stimulate your energy. That's the acronym for release. And the key here is this: through 2 days of intensive work, we go through all of the negative emotions that you could experience: anger, sadness, fear, hurt, guilt, shame, depression, jealousy, envy, all of those negative emotions. So it's a pretty intensive, what I like to call it is a verbal vacuuming of the mind.
Mm.
Okay. And so we go in and we get even into the corners of the closets. I mean, we go in and get all of that stuff out and we deal with it. And we go through the process, as I mentioned, of the timeline work and the questioning and the forgiveness covenant. In those 2 days, you'll release all your attachments to the negative emotions from your past if you choose to do so. It's up to you because I'm there as a guide. And if you want to keep those negative emotions, or if they do serve a useful purpose, then we'll dive into that and we'll figure out what's best for your future. The past is a canceled check and the future is a promissory note. The only thing you can do anything about is right this moment. So that's when we deal with all of those emotions from the past. And so normally it takes no more than 2 days. And the guarantee that I have for the work is when we sit down and we write out what our goal is for the session, I guarantee that we'll achieve that goal in those 2 days, or I'll continue to work with that person until we achieve those goals at no additional charge.
Mm.
So essentially, that's the overview.
So have you ever had a 10-year client?
Actually, I had in a number of years that I've been doing this, I've had 2 clients who have taken longer than the 2 days. One took a half a day. The next morning, we had to do some cleanup work. The other one took 2 weeks, and he finally admitted that he wanted to be the only one who took longer. So that was the reason for the 2
How
weeks.
funny.
And then he admitted that he was fine and that he had come to his breakthrough and that it was actually all up to him. So those are the 2 that took longer than the 2 days.
That's fun. Our ego sometimes plays games with us, doesn't it?
Just a little bit.
I want to know what is really possible for somebody who's listening today, who just knows they want something different, but doesn't know what it is, or maybe does know what it is, but doesn't know how to make that next move. So what is really possible? What can you create in your life from this jumping off point?
So that's an awesome question, because I think the answer to the question is whatever you want to create in your life. When you have cleared yourself from the shackles of the negative emotions that you've been carrying with you all this time, you're now free. You have all this excessive energy. It becomes normal in a very short period of time. But the idea is that now you have the energy to focus with clarity on what your vision's going to be. And that's part of the process, is establishing a goal. Remember that we have to future pace the person at the end of the session to find out exactly what they want in their life. Because again, they may be wandering around aimlessly without direction if there's nothing there, because they have been so focused on the stuck state, or they've been so focused on trying to get rid of those shackles from the past that have been holding them back. A lot of times they feel like they're living life against a headwind. And basically what this does is that this allows them to live life with a tailwind, right?
So go
that's
with
what they
the
can-
flow, right?
Go with the flow, right, exactly. So we do future pace the situation for them specifically. Every individual is different. Every person wants something different. But my question to people is, if time and energy and money and all these other circumstances that you deal with were not an issue, what would you choose for your life?
Yes.
Okay. That's the best way to look at it, because all of the other things are manageable if something's important enough. You'll absolutely find the money if something's important enough. You'll find the positive motivation to do something if it's important enough. When your mind is big enough, the how doesn't matter.
Yes, I love that. And you've put it into maybe even a deeper context. I mean, because we hear those sayings all the time, right? You know, your why should make you cry. I've heard that so many times I can't tell you. But it's great to have kind of the impetus behind it and the control or the empowerment to actually realize it.
Well, that leads me to another point, is that you don't have to do it all yourself. That's the other part, that a lot of people are perfectionists, and there's no perfection in the world. Very good book that I recommend to people to understand that you should not wait until something's perfect to move forward. There's a book by Michael Masterson entitled Ready, Fire, Aim. And essentially, the gist of the book is you've got to take a shot in order to be able to know how to adjust your sights to get the bullseye. So the first shot's probably not going to work. What I say to people is, if you're going to become a public speaker, go out there and get it done as quickly as you can, because the first 10 times you do it are not going to be very good. But you got to get through that in order to learn what wasn't good in order for you to be able to improve it. If you want to be a blog writer, if you want to be a superstar manager, whatever those things are, you have to be willing to take that step out. And it's not failure, it's feedback. Everything we do is about our identity. Their failure is only feedback on what didn't work, and they immediately go back and do it again until they work. Think about when you learned how to ride your first bicycle. How many times did you fall off the bicycle? It didn't bother you because you were bound and determined. Because what did a bicycle represent? It represented freedom.
Yeah.
It represented mobility, that we could go out and go farther than just what we could walk. No matter how many times we fell off, we got right back on until we could balance ourselves, and then we could go. And so if we just treat everything that we're doing in our life as if it's learning how to ride a bike, it becomes much easier to ingest all of that feedback that we're getting until we find the right way.
I love that. Successful people have only failed more than the rest of us, right?
That's so very true. I'm among all of those people who have failed many times, and I'm still working towards the success that I want in my business as well. No matter how much success I've already enjoyed, we're always continually evolving. That's the nature of our world. That's the nature of being human. But we have the greatest goal-seeking mechanism on the planet between our two ears. We just have to learn how to use it in the right way for us.
Right. And so I've a couple more questions for you before I let you go. And one of those is because you kind of brought me full circle to this moment of what is success? You alluded to this earlier in our conversation. It's about if you want something different, maybe you don't want something different. So what does success mean for you?
Well, for me personally, it's different than what success would mean for you. Everybody has their own different level of success. For me, it's a matter of a certain number of clients that I'll be able to help on a regular basis, a certain number of coaches I'll be able to work with on a regular basis. I have a limitation in the amount of time that I have available to work with people, but I want to fill that time with as many people as I can to work with them. So that's what success looks for me. As far as what it gets me the ability to go on the road in a moat coach full time and live my life on the road while I'm still working with my clients. That's my ultimate goal. That's my idea of what success is to be able to have a balance. You have to have time to recharge your batteries. Otherwise, you get into the law of diminishing returns, and you can work the same amount of hours, but you're getting less and less productive because you're burning out. We are made to take a rest. That's why we have sleep at night. But we also need to take a vacation from everything every once in a while. A good way to look at that would be maybe take a weekend every quarter and go out of town somewhere. Even if it's 5 towns away, just go somewhere that's a different environment. You're not thinking about work, you're doing something different. But if you did that once a quarter, that's a good way to be able to recharge your batteries enough for the next 90 days. And then continue to work that way. If you're on the road full time, you're kind of doing that anyway. So then you can structure your hours the way you want.
Well, that's an interesting point, because a lot of people assume that we're kind of on permanent vacation because we are full-time RVers. But the truth is that we're kind of in the RV grinding during the week, and we may sneak out for a dinner. We may take a quick trip down to the beach or go grocery shopping. But during the work week, we're pretty dialed in and focused on our businesses. Weekends, we try and get out and explore where we're at. But it's not the same as being on vacation by a long shot. It's a lot of fun, though. I not give it up for anything.
Well, that's a beautiful point about it.
And my ask of you is, just give us, what is an actionable step we can take now
if we want to just explore what could come next for us.
So everybody's obviously going to have different goals, different desires in life. But I think one of the things that I would recommend is get yourself into a schedule or a routine that feels comfortable for you, but takes care of you first. I've always been of the opinion that you can't take care of anybody else until you take care of yourself first. The more that you take care of you, the better you can take care of them. And when I say take care of them, I mean the better offers you can make, the better suggestions you can make, the better guidance you can offer. So when you wake up in the morning, do something for yourself, like we've talked about before, a routine where you get up and you make your bed in the morning. That's one accomplishment, right? Now, not everybody has that, but agreement.
I fought that for the longest time. It's like, I don't have to make my bed. Nobody's going to see my bed. Don't tell me what to do.
Exactly, right. But the idea is that it's an accomplishment of some kind, even though
Right.
it's an accomplishment. And then, you go on and you either go do your meditation or your workout or whatever it is that you do to prepare yourself, but you're taking care of you first. And then
Yeah.
you have your breakfast and you get your mind ready, whether you read or meditate or whatever that is. And then you have focused on what you want to do for that particular day. I like the 3-day-a-week schedule myself, where you schedule yourself really full for 3 days out of the week, from 6 in the morning till 6 at night, 3 days a week. You've got 36 hours of stuff that you've accomplished. Then you've got 4 days to work for yourself, to do what you want, and maybe go out into town and spend a couple of days exploring the town that you're in as a full-time RVer or something.
Right.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I think so. Sometimes there is a project, a deadline, or something that we have to grind. Or maybe we're working a full-time job and have a side hustle on the side. That does require some grind time, but that doesn't mean we can't set aside some me time, right?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, again, if you do the me time in the morning as a routine, the first 2 hours of your day from, say, 5, if you're joined the 5 o'clock club and you do you for 5 to 7 o'clock in the morning, you're getting all of that out of the way before most people are even getting up. So you get you taken care of. That's the first thing. Then you're in a position where you can help other people. When you do have to grind, though, I think there are some things that you can do to make that grind a lot easier on the mind. In other words, every hour, get up and do some kind of physical movement, whether it's to cross crawl around the room, whether it's to go outside and breathe some fresh air, whatever that looks like for you. Take a break, 15 minutes every hour. Just take a break and allow yourself to reset. That's one thing that you can do that will be very, very helpful. The other thing is to plan your meals so that they're basically mentally nourishing. They're meals that will give you stimulation if your supplementation is good. But the most important thing I believe that you can do during the day is drink enough water. I have to tell you that so many people overlook that, but water is the real secret sauce to living in a state where you feel energized all the time. If you feel sluggish in the afternoon, it's usually because you don't have enough water or you're not eating the right kind of foods. And so water is a big deal.
Right. I mean, we talk about the energy and the subconscious and all of the things, and that really boils down to the cellular health, right? And
Absolutely.
water is the conduit for all of that energy.
It is.
Final question for you. I'm going to give you a choice, A or B.
Okay.
You want the A question?
Okay, I'll take them both.
The first question is, who do you want to play you in a movie?
Oh, that's a really great question. I didn't know that I would have a movie, so it would be challenging. Oh, I would say Robert De Niro.
Ooh, good choice. Good choice. I think he'd do a great job too.
That would be my choice.
Yeah, awesome. Great answer.
Okay.
And then your final question is, what is one bucket list item you have that you want to accomplish in the next year?
I want to get the motor coach and be on the road full time.
I figured that would be your answer.
That's the answer for sure. I've been working at that for a while now. Getting everything all set.
What excites you?
The adventure of discovering new places that I have read about, heard about, and being able to experience them in real time.
Awesome. Yeah, we love that. Well, Tom, this has been great. Is there any last words that you want to share before we wind up here today?
I would just encourage everybody to find your happy place, whatever that means for you. Find your happy place, because that's where you're going to get a chance to spend most of your time. None of us get out of here alive. There's no sense in suffering while we're here. And once we're gone for a very, very long time. So make it as happy as you can while you're here. Do the best that you can for you and those that you love and are around you. And we're communal animals, so let's make sure that we're doing that in congruence with everybody else that we have in our environment. But for sure, do what makes you happy. I think that's the most important thing that I would share with everybody.
Awesome. I love it. Yep. Go out there and be happy. Choose it today. All right, Tom, thank you so much for your time. We will make sure that everybody knows how to reach out to you and hopefully say hello or learn more about what you do.
Well, I'm honored to have been here with you. I appreciate your thinking about me and taking all of these questions to task for me, because it brought out an awful lot of great stuff that I think some people will be able to enjoy, some people will be able to utilize, and that's the point of the whole experience, right? Is we're in an experience economy. Let's have a good one.
Thanks, Tom.
Thank you.
Thanks for spending this time with me on Living the Good Life. You'll find any links, takeaways, or tools that we mentioned in the show notes. And I'd love to hear what landed for you. Be sure to join our Living the Good Life Facebook community, where we keep the conversation going. It's full of bold, curious, purpose-driven people just like you. I'm Kimberly Henry. Keep creating, connecting, and living the good life your way.